Thank you. Well, some great speakers, and now you've got the security person. So let me tell you a few things about what's going on in my world and why I hope that you're all going to take a bit of time to listen to what I've got to say in the next few minutes. So the thing is that we all hear about the big headline attacks. We all hear about the WannaCries, or recently, sadly, BA got done over, and many others as well, Equifax and Uber, to name just a few. But this is a much more subtle and insipid thing that is going on. Every 40 seconds, an organization somewhere in the world, a business, is done by a ransomware attack. There are over 1.4 million new phishing sites, and I won't ask if anyone in this room has happened to click on any of them, but someone must be clicking on them, otherwise they wouldn't be created. 1.4 million a month. In BT, we get attacked seriously over 4,000 times a day. We detect over 100,000 different pieces of malware every day. So this is not something that is just those headline attacks. This is something that is affecting you, me, and everyone around, and it has the potential to draw a halt to a lot of what we've heard about already this morning and all those services that we actually know and love. So it's pretty serious stuff. $6 trillion a year by 21 is no small number. So what I would say is we're not quite at all getting to grips with what's actually going on. And we have to do something really quite different to be able to actually understand what we're dealing with and then put in place technology and process, but most importantly, that nexus between the human and the technology to be able to get ahead of what's happening. And why? And the why is really quite straightforward. Every organization, whether it's a legacy type business or a new type business, is in some sort of digital transformation. And you can see some stats on the screen behind me. If we can't get this right, then what's at stake is those digital transformations are simply going to grind to a halt, or worse, go backwards. And every organization that is involved in competing in their existing markets will not be able to succeed unless they can transform digitally. And what I find quite curious when I talk to many different organizations around the world about this is that the security piece of the equation is somehow left to one side. It's somehow an add-on, something that happens afterwards, the irritation, the thing that stops things, the things that creates inflexibility. And all of those things could be the case, but they don't necessarily have to be the case. One organization in the financial services industry I was talking to the other day said that in their business, over 3,000 applications that they're running have been put into a cloud environment, and the individuals responsible for security in that organization didn't even know about that. How can you get your hands around what's actually going on and what you're responsible for as an organization if you can't get that sort of stuff right? And it's not technology, necessarily, that leads us to get those things right. Now, what's at stake is the ability for organizations to transform, but also what's actually at stake is you and me. This is really personal. And 9 times out of 10, that crime manifests itself in individuals losing money, losing life savings, being physically impacted. That doesn't just affect individuals, it also affects our way of life and families and our whole social fabric. So this is really serious. And thinking about the fact that security somehow has to catch up and be bolted on afterwards with the type of impact that we're seeing just simply isn't good enough. So a number of things need to happen. Of course, government action and big organizations like ours where we can intervene. And we have a program here in the UK called Active Cyber Defense, which is helping to deal with some of the malware we see on a daily basis and stop people being impacted by it. All of that needs to be coordinated. But in any organization, there are a few things that I see going on that are just at the moment not right. And this is what I see organizations falling into 2 distinct categories. Now imagine a coconut. You're on holiday, you know, the thing with the umbrella on it. It doesn't have to have an umbrella, by the way. And on the right-hand side, yes, that is an avocado. And the way most organizations still look at security is what I would describe as a coconut. So what they're trying to do is harden up a perimeter, make sure that people can't get in, and only those who are allowed to get in can get in. But increasingly, that becomes less and less meaningful in the way in which we interact and we share data in the business-consumer environment or the business-to-business environment. So the coconut, creating that hard perimeter, and then the stuff that you're interested in is that interesting flesh inside the coconut. So that's the way in which we've done it for some time until now. Now, clearly that is not sustainable. And in BT, I've worked for a number of years looking at this challenge. I've done some things which haven't been quite right, but one thing I do know is right is that that is no longer a way in which we can actually go on and expand and deliver the types of new services like the 5G services that you may have heard about in the press over the last couple of days that we're doing now. We've had to take a very different approach, and that has meant some real fundamental transformation in how we go about delivering our business to what I would describe as the avocado on the right-hand side. Now, that is one where we're looking more proactively at what's going on. Number one, we really have to identify that stuff that is really important to us. If you want the nut inside the coconut, I know that's the thing you don't eat, but you get what I mean. That nut in the middle of it, those things that we're really, really bothered about, those crown jewels, if you want, in our organization. And then around that, create the ability, the soft ability, if you want, for that nut to be got at, but with layers of protection. So it slows down and doesn't mean that there's a hard perimeter to crack into, but there is some protection and layered protection, if you want, around the stuff that you're really trying to protect. And so that is a real big shift, a fundamental shift. And most organizations are grappling with that. It doesn't mean that you don't need any perimeter type controls, but you do need to really pay attention to the fact that the ability for you to share information at whatever size of the organization, and then not just share that information, but allow organizations, users, and everything to get to what you want them to get to, but in a way in which means that the right people get to the right things as opposed to the wrong people getting to the wrong things is the fundamental shift. And that's not just about keeping people out. So from a reactive hard shell to something that has a softer approach, but a layered approach that allows you to get to what you want to get to, but you look after it nonetheless. So 4 things that I see that any one of you in this room here today, regardless of what you're doing, whatever organization you work for, however big or small, can do to start getting onto that security transformation journey. That one where you become part of the transformation, not one where, if you're in any organization, the security piece becomes some sort of afterthought. And at BT, that is something that we have really grappled with. And these 4 things are the things that I time and time again see are the real things that unlock that ability for you to be able to transform, and we've been able to transform our business and continue to. The first one is pretty straightforwardly, although it's nothing to do with technology, it's about your structure. How are you actually structured to be able to deliver the type of security transformation that I'm talking about? And that means, let's take some examples. Right down in the middle of where we have our software development teams. What's happening with their code libraries? How are we allowing access to those code libraries? How does it get deposited at the beginning and end of each working period? How do we have our file integrity managers running across those? So how do we enable that process of development and then eventually release into production actually to happen in a way it doesn't inhibit the development community, enables them to do it, but enables them to do it in such a way that we can verify the integrity of the code that is being cut. And when we're using open source, for example, how that comes into that equation as well. So really getting into the structure of our organization, not being some adjunct somewhere off to the side, right in the middle of that process. And if necessary, then re-engineering that process to be able to get it right. So structure, governance, all pretty dull words, got nothing to do with technology and security technology more specifically. These are things which, if they're not right, then things be able to get in the way. You may become the next victim of some of that cybercrime. The next one goes along from that, which is about that internal engagement. Many of you in the room here will be customers of ours. Every time you use a service that we provide for you, you are consuming security. You're consuming the fact that you want your bill to be right. Most importantly, you want the service to work and not have someone interfere with that ability for us to deliver your service to you. So getting internal engagement in our organization is something that I found is really important. And that's not just about our direct workforce. Our ecosystem of people and organizations that work with us is over 250,000 strong, making sure that every one of those people have an idea of what it is that security means to what we're about as a brand, and that trust that comes with our brand. And that comes through internal engagement and getting people really bought into the fact that security is something that is really important and we take seriously. Next is going around in a different way is understanding your cyber risk. And this is something that really even as individuals, we can make some assessments about. We make assessments about risk all day, every day in our personal lives. And the same is true for what we do in our business lives as well. But we have to get busy. We have to understand what we've got. We have to understand those nuts in the avocado and what we really want to look after. And we have to understand what it is and how we are going to enable organizations to exploit that information that we want to work with. And finally, we have to be prepared to constantly evolve to make sure that we are in a place where we can grasp that new technology. What's at stake for us in BT simply is this, is that if we're not in a position to be able to exploit our ability to be able to protect and open up, if you want, at the same time, show that flexibility and be more proactive through situational awareness, it will simply grind our digital transformation, our launch of our new exciting products and services to a halt. And I'm pleased to say that's not the case, but it's something that's taken quite a bit of learning and something that we're continually trying to evolve. Thanks very much indeed.